Should parents ask their children's permission before changing their dirty diaper? How far does the Me Too movement extend? Also, speaking of the Me Too movement, where is the Me Too movement when a man who thinks that he's a woman is demanding that females wax his genitals? Yeah. Also, that same man, he wants to host a topless party for children. All that and more. This is Deconstructing the Culture, and I am your host, Elisa Steele. Hey, you. Thanks so much for being a supporter of the show. Seriously, I can't tell you how incredibly overwhelmed I've been with your positive responses, especially after last week's podcast when I read you that ridiculous 1-star review. So thank you. Thank you for leaving a 5-star review. Thank you for leaving your positive comments. I just want to highlight one real quick from Elisa JN. She left the review, 1 million out of 10 recommend. Elisa, you are so smart and beautiful. Keep sharing your voice. Well, I don't know about the beautiful part or the smart part, but hey, I'm going to take nice words any old time. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, thank you so much for your encouragement. Thank you for your kind words. Especially thank you for those of you of your stories of where something I said maybe rang true with you and helped you to change your life. I mean, one of the most meaningful reviews I had was someone telling me that I talked about social media and the harms it can have and how we need to be wary of it. And she really cut hardcore back on her phone use and social media use. And hey, I know that some people might look at that and be like, Elisa, part of your, what benefits you is people being on social media where you're at and listening to your podcast. Guess what? If it means that people don't see my stuff so much, but they have a more meaningful, fulfilled life, disconnected from their phone and technology and more connected to their loved ones and real life, then I will take that trade-off any day. So that's kind of where I stand at that. Now, real quick before I dive into this week's podcast content, I want to take a minute to acknowledge the tragedy over this last weekend, and we had 2 mass shootings within a 24-hour period, one in El Paso, at least 20 fatalities and 26 injured last time I checked. According to CNN, Texas Governor Greg Abbott stated that the death toll stands at 20, and the police chief Greg Allen added that 26 were injured. So that's where it's at as of this recording. There's also then literally within that same 24-hour block, there was a mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio. It killed 9 and injured 27. At approximately 1 a.m. on Sunday morning, a suspect opened fire on the Oregon District of Dayton, Ohio. The suspect killed 9 people and injured 27, and within minutes, the nearby police officers neutralized that suspect, killing him in the process. Now, the shooter from El Paso is still alive and in custody, and the shooter from Ohio, like I said, is gone. But still, it doesn't matter if they're taken out or if they're caught. It doesn't take away the grief that those families and loved ones must be feeling right now. And I don't know if you've ever had a death in your family. More than likely you have, but as I know, that one death can ripple affect thousands of people. So, 9 people killed in Ohio and 20 in El Paso. We're talking about easily 29 or more deaths that ripples across our country, and it hurts us all. Not only that, but now you have open spaces, public spaces. People are becoming more and more worried, and where can you go that's safe in a public space? What do you do? And I think as a whole, we can either become really paranoid and scared and hostile and suspicious towards everyone, or we can band together and realize that there's a few crazies. And I would say we should opt to being inspired to be able to take care of our loved ones and take care of our community and go get a concealed carry permit and actively carry on you. Female, male, as long as you're over the age of 21, I would very strongly recommend, if your state will allow it, which that's a whole nother subject. All states should allow it, but if your state allows it, you should. And if you are in a healthy mind frame, you are mentally sound, you should seriously consider becoming a educated person with guns and doing your community a public service. Because like I said, we can get scared and paranoid, or we can band together to protect each other and become defenders of the public. So that's kind of my thoughts after this weekend and those horrific shootings. Now, diving into this week's content. In an article from the Daily Caller, do you guys remember this story came out just like a couple of weeks ago, that disgusting story of a transgender woman, which means it's a confused man, a biological man who believes that he's a woman. He filed gender identity discrimination complaints against mostly poor immigrant women for refusing to bikini wax his biological male genitalia. He's now, as of this last month, he's been seeking to hold 3 topless swims for people ages 12 and up, and parents would be barred from attending. Seriously, can you think about the consequences of that? Ages 12 and up and no parents. It's awful that they're barring the parents, but like that's just icing on the cake. It's awful that you would ever think about hosting a party for 12 years old and up. Topless swim party? Talk about child abuse in its extreme. The only people going to show up to that are confused, abused children and pedophiles. That's the only people who are going to show up to that. And that is a complete spelling disaster for more injuries and more harm and complete and utter child abuse. It's disgusting that this is, don't even get me. Just disgusting. It boggles my mind that anyone could think that this would be okay. So this gentleman, I'm going to call him a man because he is a man, Jessica Yava, is scheduled to appear, or he was scheduled to appear before the Township of Langley Council in British Columbia in Canada on July 22nd. So here, a couple weeks ago, for permission for an, quote, all bodies swim at 3 community pools where individuals, including girls as young as 12, will be permitted to be topless. The swim for kids who identify as LGBTQ2S+. That's new, guys. Just pausing right there. I understand LGBTQ. I don't know what 2S+ means. But since there are apparently like countless genders, we can only assume that this is another mental instability and confusion that's being added to the list. And it's an appeal to bar parents from attending. Yavi cited an interest in fostering a safe and inclusive environment. Newsflash, Yanvi, I don't know how to say your name. Newsflash, safe and inclusive environment. This is literally the job of parents, to create safety and inclusivity for their children and to teach them right from wrong and how to stay protected from, perverts like you. And you want to bar the people who are most interested in protecting their children from a child abuse event? Because that's what this is. That's ridiculously, outrageously wrong. Holy cow. They continued on Twitter. On Twitter, a user asked Yanavi about the topless pool party, and he responded, quote, what's the problem with 12-year-old topless girls? Let them be themselves, unquote. The following tweets have actually now been deleted, but there were more people calling out this for what it is, and he replied in very defensive language. But it's all been deleted now, so yeah, you're hearing it here. As earlier, the all-body swim at Langley Pool aimed for LGBTQS, Q2S. If someone wants to email me or message me what Q2S means, I'd be very happy to know. It was actually canceled. There was an earlier one of these same disgusting child abuse, get-togethers. It was actually canceled earlier in July due to objections on social media and exclusion of parents and guardians. And this event is said to be against, basically they've been specifying anything below the waist has to be covered, that only topless swimming was allowed, and it's also said to have gender inclusive restrooms and washrooms are available. I don't understand why they feel like anything above waist is not abuse, but anything below waist is abuse. Any non-consensual touching, especially sexual touching, is abuse. So, yeah, you're kind of inviting that in. Doesn't matter. Honestly, even if all these children and adults were fully clothed, I would still say it's grooming for child abuse if you're barring parents from going. Honestly, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. Now, my question is, bringing this up, where is the Me Too movement? Why aren't we hearing about this right and left and all over? And the Me Too movement liberals screaming about how wrong this is, because it's the Me Too movement, okay? We're all about standing up for those who, might not have the strength and wherewithal to come out and talk about these sexual abuse situations. Why aren't they talking about this? Instead, they're talking about other very important subjects that they consider to be worthy of the Me Too movement. And I don't know if you remember this, but last year there was a person named Deanna Carson. She's a sex education expert, and she sparked a debate on sexual consent after she argued that parents should ask their children for permission before changing their diapers. Now, of course, we're like, most of the time if they're wearing diapers, they don't even have words to say, yes, I give you official consent. Why don't I sign a paper for you that you can change my diaper for the 15th time this morning? And it's only 11 a.m. So she points that out, and she says, we work with parents from birth just about how to set up a culture of consent in their homes. I'm going to change your nappy now. Is that okay? And now, of course, the baby's not going to respond, yes, Mom, that's awesome. I'd love to have my nappy changed. But if you leave a space and wait for body language and wait to make eye contact, then you're letting the child know that their response matters, she said. And my question is, this is my question. Has she ever changed a child's diaper before? Because I've never had children yet, but I'm the oldest of 5 children, the youngest of whom is still quite young. And between me and my sister, there was a 9-year difference. And between me and the other sibling, there's quite a difference in age. So I was older and a teenager when some of my very young siblings were being born. And I also have a very large family full of cousins who I babysat. Basically, my point is I've changed a lot of diapers, okay? Let me tell you something about changing children's diapers. Most of the time when they're tiny, they don't want their diaper changed. And if you ask for their consent with, how did she say it? Their body language and eye contact, they're going to tell you, no, I want to stay in this all day long. I don't want you to take it off. No, you cannot change my diaper. That's what their body language and eye contact would be telling you. So this is ridiculous. Plus, why the heck do we think all of a sudden that children are so smart and so intelligent and so wise that they can choose everything? They can choose whether or not their diaper is changed. They can choose their gender, but we still know they're not capable of choosing even their own food. If you left them alone for a couple of hours, they'd probably die, yet they're somehow capable of deciding whether or not their diaper should be changed and what gender they are. That doesn't make any sense. So the Me Too movement is screaming about child consent when it comes to changing a child's diaper, but not a man trying to force women to wax his male genitalia and topless parties, pool parties, with little girls and little boys and pedophiles, assuming because it's ages 12 and up. There's no end cap. Doesn't matter. All of it would be abuse, but I'm just saying it's disgusting. Why is one being promoted as sane and reasonable and responsible, and the other is crazy? Of course you should. You can't discriminate. He's a transgender woman. You can't say anything he does is wrong. Okay then, all right then, I see how that goes. Now, on this topic, I actually want to go into another topic that I actually do think makes sense, and this is probably a place where maybe not all of you are going to agree with me. Now, this last year, so the story about the changing the diaper, that was actually something from last year. Now this year, a parenting expert, her name is Jane Evans, she says that grandparents should receive verbal consent from their grandchildren before giving physical affection, such as hugging or kissing. Evans made the remark during a Wednesday broadcast of British daytime show This Morning. Now what are the details? Evans, who appeared on the show to speak with host Ruth Lingsford and Emmeline Holmes, said that grandparents asking consent to show physical affection can only benefit young children, encouraging them to take control of their own bodies from a young age. Adding that it's of paramount importance for children to teach their kids healthy for parents to teach their children healthy boundaries. Evans reasoned that the same guidelines that parents apply to strangers should also be applied to friends and family. Now, there was a ton of backlash on Twitter and on social media. One Twitter user wrote, Jane Evans on This Morning is because of people like you that this country is in such a state, moron, and in my day, verbalizing what was known as talking. Another added, Jane Evans calls herself an expert. What makes her an expert? She's pathetic. Don't kiss or hug your grandparents, etc., etc. Piss off, you sado woman. I will continue to hug, kiss, tickle my grandkids, etc., and even in my nieces and nephews, no matter what age they are, get a life. Another person said, Jane Evans, you're talking rubbish. We need to show children that affection and hugging are good things and natural. In a world of tech where physical interaction is being reduced, this is nonsense. So I would argue that this woman has a point. Now, obviously, should it be every single time a grandparent wants to hug their child, they'd say, will you consent to giving me a hug? Or will you consent to me kissing you on the cheek? No, not quite. I think the spirit of what she was trying to say is actually correct. And I know not all of you will agree with me on this, but this is actually something I think is really, really important. The statistics of child abuse are disturbingly high. And even worse is most children aren't abused by some random stranger. They're abused by someone whom they love and trust and is in a trusted position. That's how they have access to that child in the first place. And I'm not trying to sound awful. I'm not trying to say all grandparents are bad. I'm not trying to say family's bad. I'm just saying it is not uncommon for close loved ones to abuse children, whether that's uncles, fathers, grandparents. So while I understand how this could be seen as extreme to, tell children, or tell grandparents, you need to get their permission to hug them. And I could see this being taken in the wrong way. And I could see this being totally and completely taken overboard. I think the general spirit of what this woman is trying to say is actually good. In my own experience growing up, my mother actually, I think because of some things that happened in her life, she always wanted to make sure that her children know that no one ever has any right to a hug or physical affection if we don't want it. So I remember when I was growing up, I'd see my aunts and uncles be like, to their own children, they'd say, oh, go give so-and-so a hug, go get so-and-so a hug. My mom would always be like, no, you do not have to give anyone a hug ever. There's no, it might be a social obligation, but you do not have to give anyone a hug. You don't want to. That includes grandparents, that includes uncles, that includes aunts, that includes cousins, that includes anybody. It was always, if you want, it's not like she wouldn't suggest, oh, you could give grandma a hug. She would suggest something, but we always knew we didn't want to, we didn't have to. In fact, this came into play later in my life when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I was at a cousin's birthday party, and there was a father there who gave me the heebie-jeebies. I mean, there was something off about him. And my grandmother, who wasn't, she didn't quite feel the same way my mom did about children being able to choose, was like, Elisa, go give so-and-so a hug. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable with that. And I was probably 9 years old. My grandma was horrified. She thought my mother had really messed up by teaching me bad manners because her grandmother had told her to give this gentleman a hug. And I said no. But I think that it's important for children to learn at a young age that their body is their body. And if there's something or someone makes them uncomfortable, it is good for them to learn that. So there are two sides of the spectrum. You can go extreme and try and say you should ask permission to change your child's diaper. That doesn't make any sense. And then there are middle grounds, like you can teach a child they don't have to give someone a hug if they don't want to give that person a hug. I think that the Me2 movement is very misled, but I think at the root of it, I think it probably was started with good intentions, because there is a lot of sexual abuse that is not talked about or addressed or accepted as valid, that this someone else's feelings and experiences, they don't accept them as easily and as readily as I would like to see happen. So just trying to pull out both sides of that, and to remind us conservatives not to go crazy on every expert who says something kind of a little different than we're used to. Try and take the spirit of the truth out of it, if there is any. All right, now before I continue on, please subscribe, leave a review. If you'd like to watch this podcast, you can go watch it on YouTube, and you will see, if you're watching, I am officially in my new home. I'm really, really, really happy to be here. Super exhausted. It has been a crazy couple weeks, nonstop packing and unpacking, but I'm finally here, and I can't quite say my house is put together. You know, if you know an electrician around here wants to put my microwave up, that would be awesome. No, I'm just kidding, but for real, please go leave a review wherever you listen, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, wherever it is, just share. That would be awesome. All right. Now, this week's book is a classic. I usually tell you more modern books that I've been reading lately, or someone's recommended to me, or that is a popular book. This book is old school. It's been a while since I've read it, but I read it many times as a young person. It's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I love this book. It's truly classic if you're a female or you have young children. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're female or male. My brother read this book too when we were young, and he really enjoyed it too. Not quite as much as I did, but he really enjoyed it. A little bit about it, it says here in the description, there's no surprise that Little Women, the adored classic of four devoted sisters, was loosely based on Louisa May Alcott's own life. In fact, Alcott drew from her own personality to create a heroine unlike any seen before, Jo. Willful, headstrong, and undoubtedly the backbone of the March family. Follow the sisters from innocent adolescence to sage adulthood with the joy and sorrow of life in between, and fall in love with them and their enduring story. Love this book. It is beautiful. It is simple. It is clean. It feels like a simpler time for children's literature, especially. And so much of today's children's literature, I'm reading it and I'm floored at what they're able, and what what passes as children's literature. It's kind of dirty, and they'll make references to Playboy or something inappropriate, or way too much making out. Why is there so much descriptive making out in children's books nowadays? Ugh, don't get me started on that rant. Anyways, this is a clean-cut, simple, beautiful classic. Definitely recommend it. Even as an adult, it's a really enjoyable read. Now, skipping to our next category, usually I do either a movie, TV show, or a piece of music, modern music in this section. I'm actually going to skip it for this week because there's a bunch of questions that I have been meaning to get to, and I usually run out of time, so I'm going to take a couple questions today. Now, this is from Caitlin. Caitlin says, hey, I'm pro-life for sure, but there are a few things I'm having trouble with in my beliefs. How should we handle women who have been raped and wish to have an abortion? And another common pro-choice argument I have trouble answering is, why are we so concerned with new babies and less so with all the children in our country who don't have proper care? Thank you. I just want to be informed because some questions are hard to answer. Thank you for writing, Caitlin. I really appreciate it, and I totally agree that these are really important issues. So that's two-part question. The first part is, how should we handle women who have been raped and wish to have an abortion? The answer is with love and compassion and all of the support in the world. Really what it comes down to is not a harsh, you've been raped, too bad, you have to have the baby anyways, because that's how leftists tried to tell us conservatives we are, that no, you're forced to have the baby is a language that they like to use, but that's not the case. The case is the compassionate and loving thing to do for a woman who's pregnant out of rape is to keep the child. What they don't understand, leftists that is, what leftists don't understand is that having an abortion is so traumatic emotionally and physically and psychologically. An abortion is so traumatic. It is not loving to have another traumatic experience on top of what's already a life-changingly traumatic situation of being raped. Adding trauma to trauma is in no way loving to a survivor of rape. And I'm speaking from experience, okay? What is loving and what is compassionate is showing support and love and compassion and support. Have I mentioned support? To these women, whether that's just to keep the baby or put the baby, up for adoption for a loving family. But the loving thing to do for this woman and for her health, physical and emotional, and in every way, is to keep this child. adding abuse, which is abortion is abuse, adding abuse to the woman who's already been abused is not loving. So that's how I would answer that question. To your second part, why are we still concerned with new babies? Oh my gosh, I hear this all the time from leftists. They love to tell me, you don't care about the baby the second it's born. You only care about it when it's in the uterus. Well, here's the thing, and this is a point that, oh my gosh, Christina, I'm blanking her last name. She's the founder of Students for Life. She makes this point very eloquently in a fantastic video. I'll have to share that on Facebook. Go follow me on Facebook, and I'll try and share that video so you can watch it. Christina very eloquently and very clearly makes the point. Why do pro-abortionists and pro-abortion advocates get so angry at us for not specializing in helping the impoverished children today? Why do they get so angry that we're focused on saving the unborn baby humans? And she makes the point, you don't go to the she'll make an argument such as, like, you don't go to the Cancer Association, or the Breast Cancer Awareness Association, and get angry at them and pick it and angry and get in their face and be like, why don't you care about the people who struggle with diabetes? Why don't you care about the people struggling with Alzheimer's? How dare you only focus on breast cancer? How dare you not focus more on liver cancer? And no, because that's not their specialty. That's not their purpose for their organization. That is not the issue that they're focusing on. The fact that they're focusing specifically on breast cancer, it doesn't make all the other cancers or the other ailments, it doesn't make them less important. It doesn't make them less worthy of focus. It just means that that's not what they're specializing in. That's not what they're here to stop that atrocity. Now, with the pro-life movement does care. Holy cow, we care. Trust me, we care. But when we're focusing on the pro-life movement, there's so much ill will, there's so much harm and tragedy and trauma in this world. We are choosing specifically to focus on the atrocity and trauma of abortion. And yeah, maybe one day when abortion is completely obliterated and it's unthinkable, then all that time and resources can be committed to working with the foster system. But for right now, there's a massive atrocity of millions of children being killed every year. It is not wrong for us to put our focused, specialized energy into stopping this atrocity. That's my answer to that question. All right. Oh man, I spent longer on that question than I expected. We're going to stop with that question. I'm going to go over good in the world. So this is from PJ Media, and I think the story is actually really cool. This was from earlier in the year. This was from in July, but this is the first year that the U.S. State Department has issued the International Religious Freedom Award. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, hosted the award ceremony on July 17th, where he handed out inaugural awards to 5 worthy recipients. Among the honorees was, forgive me, I might slaughter this, IBM Abakar Abu Ali. Stands out because he, quote, selflessly risked his life to save members of another religious community, unquote. The State Department adds that the fleeing Christians would likely have been killed without his intervention. Providing the details, the State Department continues. On June 23, 2018, ethnic Fulani herdsmen who were predominantly Muslim launched coordinated attacks on 10 villages in Birkeland Lod, killing hundreds of ethnic Borom farmers who are predominantly Christian. A man was finishing midday prayers when he and his congregation heard gunshots and went outside to see the numbers of the town's Christian community fleeing. Instinctively, the man ushered 262 Christians into the mosque and his home next to the mosque. The man then went outside to confront the gunmen, and he refused to allow them to enter, pleading with them to spare the Christians inside, even offering to sacrifice his life for theirs. Although the gunmen killed 84 people in the village that day, the man's actions saved the lives of hundreds more. Born in Bukchai State around 1936, this man has lived in Niger for 60 years and led the Muslim community through the mosque, which was built on land provided by the Christian community. This man's courage in the face of imminent danger and history of outreach across religious divides demonstrates his lifelong commitment to promoting interfaith understanding and peace. This is beautiful. And I love that we have created this award in the first part as the State Department. Again, it's the award of International Religious Freedom Award. Religious freedom is what this country is founded upon. It's literally the reason why America exists the way it does today. Because while Christopher Columbus found the Americas, it was the pilgrims who came over seeking religious freedom and a place to create and keep their own culture along with their religious freedom. And that is literally the basis of America today. And I love that we have this award, and I love that it's going to people who can see other humankind as valuable no matter their religion, and stand up for them, stand up for the innocent. God bless this man. God bless America. And God bless you.